Perhaps my most massive piece to date would be a work called Paquette. This work of art is made with acrylics and gold leaf. I had several ideas going into this piece, some of them which were origins and family crests. Naturally, I had to get some thumbnails and mock-ups made up. So I asked my model for a quick session, did these quick mock-ups that I would go from those initial pictures. One of my ideas was also a foliage falling in the background. I remember this painting of a flower. It was simply called Conversation, and it was just I believe it might have been a red trumpet flower, and it was against a yellow background, and I really loved it. So I wanted something similar, but I really just wanted that as a background with a portrait. In my first mock-ups, I had two circles, one which would be the family crest, and that would be the bigger circle, and the smaller circle which would be engraved with either their occupation or hobby. That idea felt a little weak, and I would later drop it, but in my mock-ups you can see this idea. In the first mock-up, that giant circle is just a penny, the engraving of the tail side of a penny. With some quick mock-ups done, I knew that I had some thumbnails as well of how my model might be positioned in accordance to where I was going to paint, how I was going to paint her. Also, having interviewed her and learning from her French origins, I knew about her surname being associated with gatherers or sellers, merchants of. I was gonna add these into the painting somehow, and what is it? As you could see in the second mock-up, you could I have the crest already there, but in association with her surname, I made a note to paint a packet or a bundle of sticks here, and I had this passing idea, but I sketched it out on a post-it note, but it was of instead of the flowers that I had originally thought of, I was gonna make it a cascading ivy. And I don't know what gave me this idea, but when I went to tell her about this, she coincidentally told me that she had a tattoo of ivy, and I was very gleeful from this anecdote because of I took it as a sign of approval from the cosmos. So I went ahead with this. I followed one of my mock-ups of the foliage, and what I did was I used this stencil pattern and I painted yellow, like this very melony yellow, underneath that. Then I would later glaze over with blue, which would result in this almost green hue. But on top of that, I would later paint the green ivy outlines, and that was all I needed before I can go ahead and gesso the circle heavily, so it would leave certain indentations that I wanted to look kind of like a coin. The gesso I used was a very dark violet. I really wanted it to be more red, but I didn't want to add more paint to this already painted gesso. And so I decided to do this to prevent for future hassles that are associated with gold leaf. If you know about gold leaf, it's kind of a pain to put it on painted surfaces because it can get very tacky. At least for me, that's what always happened. My next step was to do the gold leaf application, and it's a very tedious but fun process, and I can't ever get it to flawlessly peel right off after applying it, so I always wait overnight for it to dry. I think this is unconventional, but this is a process that works for me, so I don't know. To each his own, probably. Once it was dry, I painted around it and I started to work on the crest as well. This is when I would begin to start layering the skin and the dress. I did go back and ask for my model to take more photographs. This time I needed a picture of the eyes because when I went to go ahead and do the painting, I felt like I could see a lot of the eye, and I wanted to get the colors and the crazy lines that you could sometimes see in the eyes to capture the soul, as they say. After I was done with this, I went back and did more layers to the dress and the skin. Obviously, I did my reds and greens underneath, and then started doing glazes of peaches on top. At this point, I started working on the sticks in the globe as well, and started establishing all those little things. I did go back on the globe and I put red on translator to kind of like highlight that area. I went back and did lines for the crispiness of the crest as well. From then on, I would have to turn that in for the deadline of the art show. After much planning, thumbnail sketching, and just the mock-up paints, I was finally given permission to paint on this canvas that was such a massive size. I had to do a lot of work to get this done, but it was all worth it. For the deadline for the art show was nigh, and I had all the fun just being there with all my fellow artists, having our art curated and on display where it really did shine in the exhibit. Au revoir.